Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be doing some paper crafts, and I created this little kind of three-dimensional kind of dark academia cloche tag, and I'm going to be showing you how to do that with materials that I have, but feel free to, kind of change it up and use the materials that you have. Okay, so what are you going to need to make this little cloche tag? So first thing you're going to need is some type of stamp, whether it be a cloche stamp or like a bottle stamp, something that has a clear area in the center so that you can see what's underneath it. Next thing you're going to need is some fairly thick craft foam. Hobby Lobby has this. They have the thin sheets and then they have the thick sheets. If you only have the thin sheets, that's fine. You can layer it up if you want. You're going to need some, this is just a manila folder. You can also use like a heavy cardstock, something like that. And you're going to need some type of something to put in your cloche. It's going to have to be fairly thin, thinner than your foam. Focus. It needs to be thinner than your foam so that it can fit inside, but if you have a chunkier one, you can absolutely keep layering foam until it's as deep as you need it to be. Okay, so actually these are some air dry clay pushed into one of these Finnabair molds. You can get this on Amazon. It's a fairly common mold. So beyond that, you're going to need some ink. I've got some StazOn permanent inks, and then I've also got some Tim Holtz Distress inks, and that makes a very nice kind of aged, weathered, worn look. You're going to need some kind of a stamp for the background. So I have all this background image, and this is a stamp set that I got off of AliExpress as well. Has a lot of kind of aged, distressed kind of background texture to it. So, but you can use any stamps that will work for this process. So let's get started. And I almost forgot, you're also going to need some kind of scrap plastic, some kind of thin plastic, but you want something that's not super thin, but has a little bit of structure to it. You can cut it off of old packaging for whatever product you have that has like a thin clear plastic on the front. This is actually some stencil sheets, kind of a thinner variety stencil sheet, so you can use anything that is a clear plastic. Okay, so we're going to take this StazOn permanent ink stamp pad, and we're going to ink up the cloche stamp. I think this will work really great if you have a bottle stamp, anything like that, or a frame stamp. A frame would be really cool to do this technique as well. So you're going to carefully set that down and stamp your clear plastic. If you can see it, but I do have my clear plastic sitting on the bottom here. And carefully pull that up. There we go. And then I'm gonna let that dry a little bit so that I don't smear the image. Let that dry completely, and then we can cut it out. Now while that's drying, I'm going to use my Distress ink in Vintage Photo, and I'm going to ink up that same stamp, and we're going to stamp the manila folder. We're actually going to stamp it twice because we need two layers, one for the background and one just under the clear part. So I've got my clear stamped, and then two of the cardstock or manila folder stamped. And I like to do this with a lighter color because that way it doesn't have a lot of harsh lines around the edges on the back, and it just kind of looks cool. Alright, so we're going to cut this out. Now these back pieces, I'm just kind of loosely cutting them out and leaving plenty of space around the edge. That way I can trim them down to the actual size when I get this project put together. This one I'm going to trim it with about just a tiny sliver of extra space around the edge of the image. Okay, now I've got that cut out. That is completely cut out. And I am going to take one of these images is going to be the background that gets stamped. The other one is kind of an outline behind this to kind of hide some of that foam. And so we're going to cut out the inside of the cloche with an X-Acto knife. All right. I'm going to ink the edges of this with my distress ink, and this is just a little makeup brush, and I'm just going to ink that up pretty good. Making sure to pay attention to those inner edges because we don't want any of that bright manila folder edge showing through. Now the outside is going to be trimmed again, so I'm not paying too much attention to that because we'll ink that again at the end. So there's that, and now we can take this layer and this one and we can glue those together. And I like the art glitter glue. It does a great job of gluing a lot of different things together, and it disappears. It dries really clear, so it works really well for this. And I'm not applying a ton, just enough to stick these together, a very thin amount. And I'm going to set that down right there and kind of push down so that it evenly disperses underneath that clear plastic. And there we have that. And now after this dries, we can go back around and trim that excess paper around that acrylic sheet. Alright, while that is drying, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my background. First I'm going to use some distress ink and kind of go around the edges here, give it a nice aged look. Alright, and then I'm going to take my StazOn ink and I'm going to stamp that background part. Yeah, we've got our background piece and we got our front piece, and now we have to work on making the foam piece. So before we do that, we're going to go ahead and trim around. Now that this is dry, this stuff dries fairly quickly. The art glitter glue is pretty good about that. I'm going to trim that really close and we'll be right back. Alright, now we're going to grab our foam piece, our thick foam, and we're going to lay the front piece down because it is the main part. I'm going to take a pencil and we're going to run it around, and pencil does a really good job of showing up on black foam for sure. Just run it across a few times. Okay, well, let's try that again on that side. Okay, Now you can see that line pretty well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my X-Acto knife, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to recreate kind of this line, this inside line. Even though there's not a guide there, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, and I'm going to run my X-Acto knife about like that, right? So what you want to do when you're cutting this is try to make sure that your X-Acto knife is kind of at a 90-degree angle, not like this, but like from side to side, because if you cut it like this, then the foam is going to be slanted. So try, you know, this is this way and this is this way. This is 90 degrees and this way is angled, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. You want to have your foam sides nice and straight as you cut, right? All right, let's see if I can do this while on camera here. This is kind of difficult. All right, start on this side here. Now you want to press down. You want to have a nice sharp blade. You want to press down really well. Turn as often as you need to. Foam is kind of a one-trick pony. You really want to try to get it the best you can your first pass, because it can be difficult to kind of straighten it up, if that makes sense. Okay, now this bottom part I'm just going to kind of actually, no, I kind of ran it all the way down. So, here we go. Okay. Alright, let's see. Yeah, alright. So there we go. That's what we have. These are going to be the sides of the cloche that'll give it the depth. And then when we go to cut this, you want to make sure that your X-Acto knife is on the inside edge of that pencil mark, because that's where the edge of your cloche is actually at. Again, try to make it 90 degrees the best you can so that it will be a nice even edge. This one will be all the way around. Just go slow, do a little bit at a time. As you see, I got a little bit thin on this side, so I'm actually thinking I may recut that out, because this side did not turn out too well. It can be a little finicky, so this side is pretty much perfect as far as thickness. This part here a little too thin and jaggedy, and I did that because I stopped and went from a different direction, which kind of moved the foam and can cause it to do that. So I'm going to do that one more time. Alright, now that I've got that second one cut out, I'm just going to glue this over the stamped area that I've got on this card. So, add a little bit of art glitter glue. Kind of quickly before this dries, you want to make sure that it's kind of lined up on the sides. Because foam tends to stretch when you cut it. You want to make sure your sides are kind of straight. And will give you a nice look when you go to put the top on. And that will be dry pretty quickly. can see I've got a lot of overlap. You can leave that there, but once it dries completely, then I will go ahead and trim that off. Now, the next thing you're going to need is some kind of little, you know, something to put inside of your cloche. Now you can, like I said, make these out of the paper clay in a mold, or you could, maybe you have a capuchon that, you know, you could use a piece of jewelry, something that's flat and thin. Maybe you make one out of clay by hand or something. So I'm going to trim this one up a little bit because the edges are a little jagged, and then we can glue it in. Alright, so before I go to put that in there, I'm just using some distress ink in the color Antique Linen, and I'm using a paintbrush with just a little bit of water on it, and dabbing it on that, and just I'm going to go around and just add the tiniest bit of color. I don't want to add too much because I like the white color, because it kind of like pops against the background. So I'm really just going to do those recessed areas. Just to give it a little bit of depth. Go. Now, I don't want this this piece just kind of floating around. You can see this one has a little stand, and I just took a little scrap piece of paper and kind of cut my own little stand. Make sure it's kind of basically in the center. Straight. Close enough. I don't know if you can really tell. Yeah, I mean, you can a little bit. There's a little bit of color on that thing. I think I might just take a little bit of this. This has the darker color, the vintage photo. So I think I'll just go around the edges with this brush. This has the vintage photo ink on it. This stuff is pretty awesome stuff. There we go. Alright, glue this one on as well. Okay. There we go. Move them over just a hair. There. Excellent. Alright, now we can glue the front on. Okay. Now then, if you like that layered look, you can leave that on. I may actually leave that because I kind of like how that's kind of framing it almost, so I think I'm going to leave it like that. So like this is without the frame and this is with the frame, so I think I'll just kind of trim that up a little bit nicer and go ahead and leave that kind of overlapping because I don't like it. Well, yeah, so that's how you create these awesome little cloche tags. Now these are actually this one's actually for a swap I'm doing over in the Uncommon Guild Facebook group. We do all kinds of like junk journals and like, you know, that are kind of like off the beaten path, like haunted house and, you know, just themed stuff. But we're doing a swap, which is a file folder swap. And so I'm creating this for that, and some of the ladies asked me to do a tutorial, so here we are. So thank you so much for watching. I know this is a little different than what you normally see on this channel, but I appreciate you watching anyway. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!